Hey guys, this is Matt for Creative, and today we're going to be talking about the state of the NBA in 2025, particularly where we are right now. We're in the finals, we've been through the playoffs, we've been through the regular season. Now, this is coming from a casual fan, although I do have my biases. I live in New York, I'm a big New York Knicks fan. I'm also a big Lakers fan from growing up, so it's just I have two big teams on my mind. But I would have to say, let's start things off. The New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers are playing old style basketball right now because I really believe this is an era changing year for the NBA and a huge shift for things, especially in the NBA Finals. So if you don't know right now, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers, and it's not the most watched NBA Finals. And I think I know why, and I think also the NBA tried to correct things and unfortunately didn't really go their way. So I think for right now, I'm going to skip the entirety of the NBA season just because we kind of know how things went, and the play style for that has actually been much different than it has been called in the playoffs. Maybe not the finals, but the playoffs. So in the playoffs, let's see this from the perspective of a New York Knicks fan. We overachieved. We were not really supposed to beat the Boston Celtics. Some people thought we were supposed to get out in the first round against the Detroit Pistons, but the Knicks are an incredibly built, and again, I'm going to say this right now, an old style basketball team. You know, they shoot well from mid range, they shoot okay from three, but here's where things change so much. When the Knicks, when they make a three, that's like, oh, thank God, we actually got this. Yeah, you know, this came at a point where we really needed that to happen, and okay, that's going to help us down the line. Now, when a team like Indiana makes a three, and this is coming from an opposing viewpoint because I'm not an Indiana fan, this is what it feels like. They made another three. Wow, they made another one? I can't believe it. Working up until they played the next. I was watching that series, Indiana versus whoever it was beforehand, and I was like, they take threes that look like Steph Curry takes threes, where he's not really like lining things up. He doesn't need to be in a certain position. And it almost seems like it's every single one of their players is doing such. I remember they have a player, Obi Toppin, who used to be a New York Knick until a couple seasons ago, and he is just taking threes as well. And you're thinking, this guy is a great player, but he shouldn't be making these threes. But in just reality, they are. He is. They are. And it's the same way with, I think, a little bit more talent and a little bit more bench strength for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's just the Pacers. They kind of turn their mind off to everything but hitting threes. Now, let's take things back to how things were. Again, New York Knicks perspective, that's really what I watch. I remember the very first game that we played of the year against Boston. And we're like, all right, we've added a few pieces. We've added Karl Anthony Towns and a few other pieces. This is going to be exciting. We know we have a big guy to stop their runs. And then all of a sudden, they shot three after three after three. And I was like, wow, the Celtics had a really lucky game shooting threes. That's not going to happen every single time. And then I think we went on to lose three or four times in the entire regular season by pretty big margins, where when it came time for the Knicks to fight to go against the Celtics, I was like, I'm watching the first game from home because I don't have, honest to God, because I'm a fan, but if something doesn't feel right, it's just not going to happen. I was like, the Knicks are not going to win this series. They have great players, but they're playing, and in my mind, I didn't know how to relate this. I was like, they're playing a different style of basketball. They're not relying so heavily on threes. And then we beat Boston. We beat them the first game. I was like, that's so lucky. Then I go to the bar to watch the second game. We beat them the second game. It's like, this is incredible. And it's because, at least, again, casual fan, and I know there's so many other factors, but the threes that they were shooting were not coming down. And this is just because Boston is a great team, but as against the Pacers, against OKC, they are not that type of three-point shooter. They don't have those people on the teams. And now we know what happened. There's a Jason Tatum injury. They're going to have to retool things. And I think this may be a blessing in disguise because they're going to be able to get rid of all the people who are standard old-style players, mid-range players, and they're hopefully going to be able to go after people that just make threes with their eyes closed, which is how I see the Pacers and OKC playing. Now, what I think happened in the playoffs is the NBA really took a look at how things were being shot. And it's always been a lot of threes. It's just progressing. It's the Stephen Curry effect. And it's just over and over and over. And a lot of people are not big fans of that. I like to see a little bit of fight. I like to see a little bit of aggression. I like to see a little bit of contact. I like to see more mid-range shots. But this is coming from somebody who's 35. I was born in 1989. I kind of got into watching basketball maybe like 2005, and this is my progression, and this is how I've seen the game being played. But now we have newer players and we have older players focusing on threes. Because again, you shoot a 2, that's 2 points. You shoot a 3, maybe to a little less percentage now, that's still 3 points versus 2, and then just compounds and compounds and compounds. And the stats really dictate that a 3-point shooting team is going to outscore a 2-point shooting team just for the volume of shots. And the Pacers get off so many shots. So maybe while it looks like they're making a lot of shots, it's just the amount of times more that they have to shoot because they're a very fast-paced team. So I think what was happening, I think we can all agree on this. The NBA told their refs for the playoffs, I want a more physical game so these 3-point shooters don't feel so comfortable in shooting those threes. Things were tighter, I think, at the beginning of the playoffs compared to where they are now. I think they're still taking a hands-off approach, but at the beginning of the playoffs, it was a very physical game. And it was a very lopsided one way or lopsided the other, and it really didn't even depend on night. It depended on the time in the game. It was a very unbalanced game. A lot of things were happening that they shouldn't, and I think the NBA is going to have to really clean this up. I mean, it just didn't look good. It honestly looked, and it didn't matter which team you're on, for certain parts of the game, you thought they were just holding their whistle the entire time for your team, and the other team was getting away with everything. And then it completely flipped the next quarter, and it was just back and forth, and it just was bad basketball. Because as an old-timer fan, I love more contact. And I was like, wow, we're getting back into some gritty NBA playoffs. But that's, again, in my mind, they're trying to reduce the amount of threes taken and threes made. But then we got these two teams where it doesn't matter if somebody's bumping against you. It doesn't matter if somebody's fouling you hard. They're still taking those 3 shots because that's their game plan. And the thing is, they're just making them. Again, they are not planting themselves, getting into position, planting, and then shooting. They're moving, shooting, and it's just, they're all going in. And it's incredible to see. For me, it's not that fun to see just because it kind of makes the game a little bit, how do I even describe it? It makes it just a little bit more, I don't know, it's kind of like playing beer pong. There's no contact in beer pong. You're just shooting, and that's it. And it just kind of feels like people taking a bunch of long-range shots, and it's all around this perimeter, and there's nothing else going on in there. And it's just kind of like, okay, that's how it is, I guess, in this case. But they did take that approach, but still, these two incredible 3-point shooting teams made it to the finals. And now it's a style that not everybody likes, but we know with a new generation of fans, this is going to be that sticking point, that year where they're like, hey, I like this style of basketball, and this is what it's going to be. I have to say it. I don't think it's a probably, unless there's a big rule change of some kind. This is how things are going to be from this point forward. So either you like it or you don't like it. Now, there's a few factors why I think I've peaked with the NBA and I'm slowly on my decline. There are two factors, and it's not to do with gameplay at all. First, I'm a big fan of NBA on TNT. With those core four, you know that the rights are now going to NBC and I think some others. I know that the core four, including Charles Barkley, they are going to ESPN, and their role is going to be changed. I think minimized a little bit. Hopefully, their voices aren't going to be minimized, but it's just the amount of time they're going to have on TV. I love watching that halftime show, that post game show on TNT, even if it's two trash teams that I don't care about, maybe none of my teams. I'll still tune in, I'll put the game on, I'll just let it play. Oh, it's halftime? I'm going to watch this show because I want to see these characters talk to one another, and then I'll wait until the end, even if it's late when some West Coast teams are playing, and I'll just watch it as I go to bed and fall to sleep. And it's just been the most comforting thing really through my entire life. Again, I was born in 1989. The show started in 1989. It's incredible, and it's going to be something that's going to be a shift just because ESPN and other broadcasters, they're moving from, and again, this is a weird thing because those are all players. The core four are all players, but they are moving along from having like journalists and other people cover to former players cover. And that could be good because the insight's going to be different. It's going to be from people, but they may have a little bit of a bias because they're in things they were not outside looking in. So, every perspective is different, definitely from one another. But that leads me into another show that has completely gone away, and that's Around the Horn. If you are an ESPN fan, maybe if you're coming back from work, maybe it's after school, this show went on for, I believe, 22 or 23 years. Around the Horn has always been there. And it's been kind of my comfort food of getting back into sports. Sometimes I really care about sports, sometimes I didn't care about it, but this show, regardless, kind of like was always there as a background. And it's just because the people on there, it may be a show where you're vying for points, you're trying to make your argument, but it always felt like a family talking to one another, friends talking to one another. You didn't have to win, although there was winning and losing, but it's just there was so much positivity on that show. Tony Reali, the host, Woody Page, one of the OG guests on there. It was just incredible having these people. The dynamics always worked. It just seemed to be something that just felt pure, felt good, felt like it just worked out. And again, even if I wasn't caring that much about sports, I wanted to see what these people had to say because their opinions mattered, because they just felt right. And with that show going away comes rise to, and these shows, other shows have been around, to things like Get Up, to things like First Take, to whatever replaces Around the Horn. And that's going to be not really journalists, that's going to be more players. But the thing is, and I know this is being nailed by the broadcasters, whoever it is they want arguments. Because a lot of us are kind of like, we're in our bubble with our social media. So we like what we like, we don't like what we like, and we want to argue all the time. That's it. That's how things go. That's how people are, period. And that's how they know that people want to watch their things. So a friendly banter is not going to get the same ratings as somebody saying outlandish things against somebody else and winning or losing a point, and honestly making some people feel small while the winner feels big in an opinion. And this is kind of like the Stephen A. Smith thing, where First Take is his show. And I watched it in the mornings, and it's been a fun show, but it's like it kind of wears on you, where it's just like he always has to have the final word, and we get that. It's his show. He was just paid, what, $100 million by ESPN to stay with the network? And it's just like nobody else can really get their say. They get their say, but you know that Stephen A., it's his show. He always gets the final say. And it's just kind of like he's always winning. It's not that fun. It's not that fun to watch. It's almost stress-inducing, where it's like you just want people to talk. And this is the rise of the podcast, where again, people want their arguments in politics. They want their arguments in sports. But for podcasts, it's going the other direction where it's kind of like you are sitting on the outside with your best friends and you're listening to all talk, but you don't have to. If you're an introvert, you don't have to like be a part of it because you can't because it's a podcast unless you're watching things live. But it's kind of like it's chill to watch a podcast. It's chill to listen to it on the train while you're driving. Maybe you're at the beach or something. It's relaxing and comforting. And that's kind of what I miss with the dynamic of these older sports shows. Around the Horn, definitely. Inside the NBA, Charles Barkley usually wants to have his way. So does Shaq. But then they have meteors like Ernie Johnson, like Kenny Smith. And it just felt like people were checking themselves. Not everybody was winning every single time, but it just felt balanced. It felt right. The dynamic of those four is incredible. And you can see other people trying to like emulate that, but I don't think that's the times we're in anymore. People, that would make a great podcast. Inside the NBA would make a great podcast. And I see that they're going to ESPN this year. I honestly would like them to have their own individual platform where they don't need to cover things at halftime because and this may be bad for the NBA, but I don't really want to have to watch a half of basketball just to get to the meat and potatoes of things and then have to watch another half of, two shitty teams playing against each other to have like this insight. Just have maybe an hour and a half long podcast. You generate ad revenue on your own. You don't have to be beholden to ESPN. Maybe you can be a little bit raunchier. Although what I like is, those guys don't need, or in their, as we all are, we're not PC. We're not politically correct. And you could tell because they were on not network, but cable television, that they were beholden to the rules of TNT. The rules in ESPN is going to be a little bit different, but I like that they have some rules because for me, I understand that these are real people, but when I hear Charles Barkley curse on a podcast or something, I'm like, he curses. This is insane. But it's just because I've seen this person be this put together person for such a long time that if he deviates from that, it just breaks away. But maybe they do need to change a little bit. Maybe they need to be able to curse or to have the opportunity to say more outlandish things. That just could be the evolution of that show. And maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Again, I don't think ESPN is the right network to carry them. I would like them to be independent. If they can finance it, however, if TNT can license it out, hey, whatever you can do. Anyway, guys, that's a long-winded talk about the state of the NBA in 2025, particularly in the playoffs, in the finals, and including my favorite TV shows. So, guys, if you have any comments or questions, did you watch Around the Horn? Did you watch Inside the NBA on TNT? Will you watch it on ESPN? And what will Tony Reali do for Around the Horn or whatever the property is going to be going forward? Because I would love to see more journalists speak to one another because it gets me reinvigorated into the NBA. Again, I am at this point where like I could be going up, I could be going down on the NBA. I live in a great NBA city with the Knicks here, but if the Knicks aren't winning, the bar goes from being packed and full and fun to, the bar's not even playing sound. This finals is just kind of like, I have a friend from NBA and they love what's going on here, but it's just, do you like the style of how things are going on now? Because this is an era shifting year and things are gonna go for more threes. It's just gonna be a more fluid game. They tried being more physical and I don't think that really worked out. Anyway, guys, that's it. Find me on Instagram at mh9. You can email me at creativenyc2025@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.